special? No.
Record every week.
Yeah, well, time for my computer to fire up.
Oh, I like your turtle.
Glasses. Thank you.
The fun.
One shot, maybe two.
So so we go to this place.
6 meters.
Mexico, a whole box of these pink shells. I've never seen them anywhere. And they're tiny, they're like the size of my thumb. You walk along and you
I'm
just
out.
sits there.
Not for the same.
Sits there. And so I love them.
Mm-hmm.
Pink shells are so pretty. I have a whole bowl. And now I can't find them anymore. Really? Yeah. Last year when we went there, and it was very, I love it. What am I looking? Till 6:30.
It's 6:29.
I know.
Good evening and welcome to the Monday, February 3rd, 2025 session of the Lake Forest City Council. Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Certainly. Honorable Mayor Tack.
Here.
Alderman Novit. Here. Alderman Clements.
Here.
Alderman Notes.
Here.
Alderman Powers.
Here.
Alderman Gashgarian.
Here.
Alderman Burt.
Here.
Alderman Weber.
Here.
Alderman Walder.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First item is comments by mayor. And the first item includes a request for approval of a resolution of appreciation for retired Fire Chief Pete Siebert. Pete has already moved to Tennessee, took about 30 minutes from the time that he retired. And he shared a video with us. So are we going to play this at this time?
He's suffering.
Beautiful. I don't know, he's already got a still going over there. Anyway, at this time, I'll read the resolution for Pete. Whereas Peter W. Siebert has been a dedicated employee of the city of Lake Forest since May 1st, 1996. And whereas Pete Siebert will honorably retire from the city on January 3rd, 2025. And whereas Pete Siebert began his career as a firefighter and later became a firefighter paramedic, he was appointed as a fire inspector and public education officer and dedicated many years to the Fire Prevention Bureau, where he played a critical role in fire safety and prevention education. He was promoted to fire lieutenant, then battalion chief, and ultimately served as deputy chief. And whereas Pete Siebert was appointed acting fire chief before being officially sworn in as fire chief, he served with distinction and steadfast leadership. He also served as the city's emergency operations coordinator, skillfully navigating the department through unprecedented challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, whereas Pete Siebert completed the Executive Fire Officer Program, further demonstrating his commitment to professional development and excellence in fire service leadership. He also served as the department's training officer and fitness coordinator, ensuring that personnel were equipped for success both professionally and physically. Whereas Pete Siebert served as a member of the Lake County SRT and contributed significantly to internal boards within the department and throughout the city. His leadership extended to the Lake County Fire Chiefs Association Board, where he served as president, furthering regional collaboration and excellence in fire service. Whereas Pete Siebert's tenure spanned service under 2 city managers and saw significant advancements in the fire department fleet, enhancing safety and operational capabilities. His commitment to training, succession planning, and fostering a culture of professional growth within the department has left a lasting legacy. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Lake Forest that the Council, on behalf of the administration and residents of the community, hereby expresses its appreciation and gratitude to Peter W. Siebert for a public service faithfully performed, and be it further resolved that this resolution be appropriately inscribed and conveyed to Pete, with a copy to be included in the official minutes of the February 3rd, 2025 meeting of the Lake Forest City Council. May I have a motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Very good. Great guy. All right. The next item is board and commission appointments and reappointments. I'll read all of them first and then ask for a motion to approve. We can do them all as a lump, can't we? Okay. For the Senior Resource Commission, we will be appointing John Cullen, 3rd Ward, and Susan Kokanda from Lake Bluff. And for the Zoning Board of Appeals, we will be appointing Jeff Gianelli from the 3rd Ward. May I have a motion to approve the appointment?
So moved. Second.
This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. All approved. All right. The next item is a presentation of the APWA award. And we have a slide here for this. And so, as if we didn't know this was a great project, here's a little further evidence that others look at it and find it to be so. The city's Forest Park Bluff Restoration and Boardwalk project recently received the Project of the Year award from the American Public Works Association. So congratulations to everybody who was involved in this, and there were a lot, from volunteers to the public works staff. Really is an outstanding accomplishment, and I think, you know, this spring, this summer, we're really going to get to see how amazing it is. So congratulations. Last item is that we're going to talk about is something called the Chat with the Chiefs. You will be able to connect with Fire Chief Rick and Police Chief Burke at an upcoming Chat with the Chiefs on February 18th and 19th. Where is this going to be?
West Starbucks. If you read the announcement up there, it shows you.
Oh, very good. West Side Starbucks, imagine that. It's not on my sheet. Anyway, stop by to chat, ask questions, share your thoughts. They're both very interesting guys, so I encourage people to come and chat them up. All right, next item is comments by city manager.
Thank you, Mayor and members of City Council. Good evening. I have one item under my report, and I'll just introduce it by acknowledging, I think everyone's aware of the Deer Path Streetscape project, which began last month. Staff continues to tweak our plan, and we're also actively soliciting and continually soliciting feedback both from the business community and from the general public. You may have seen that we sent out a survey to residents in our e-news last Friday, and as well as through our various social media platforms. I think we've received close to 150 responses from the public, so we're always looking to gather feedback for how we can minimize disruptions. But given the magnitude and the visibility of this project, important that we keep both the city council and the community apprised as to the status of the project and how it's going. And so beginning tonight, until the project is completed, we'll be doing under my report a monthly update on the project, so the council can hear what's transpired over the last month and also what's anticipated for the upcoming month. And again, we'll do this from now until when the project is completed later this year. So with that, I'll turn it over to Byron, and after his presentation, he can answer any questions or take any feedback from the council.
All right, thank you for the introduction. Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. As Jason mentioned, I will be giving an update on the Deer Path Streetscape project. If we walked outside, you could see that the water main project has started, which is great. The water main started about 3 weeks ago, just east of Green Bay, connecting into the water main where we left off earlier in the summer when we did the water main through that intersection. So we're going to start off with a quick drone video here. Let's see if I can get it going. I'm going to narrate a little bit here as we go. The one thing I will say that's amazing with this video is just knowing that this amount of work has already been completed in just three and a half weeks. That's where we connected, just east of Green Bay. There's the eastbound lane, which has been opened during construction. And then at Bank Lane, we got past Bank Lane, just past Bank Lane last week. All right, there we go. Technology is working for me. I just wanted to start off saying the project is going very well. The contractor, Campanella, has been great, really good to work with. They've been very aggressive with the schedule in general. I think they've worked the last 3 Saturdays. Today they were not able to be in town, but they'll be back tomorrow, and I believe that they'll work Saturdays probably going forward as well. Let's see here. So on the top right, we have the schedule for the overall corridor project, referring to both Phase 1 water main and the Phase 2 streetscape. Tonight, for the most part, we'll focus on the water main. As you know, we're in February. The water main's been going on for about 3 weeks. On the left there in the bullet points, we have some specific information for the schedule. The one thing I will say is the schedule is weather dependent and it's current as of right now. That being said, we are pretty confident that they will maintain this pace. Whenever we started the water main, the contractor decided to split it into 2 segments. So basically, I'm just going to call it segment 1, which is on Deer Path from Green Bay, just east of Bank Lane. That main line has already been installed. And then I'm going to call it segment 2, just east of Bank Lane to Western. They have not installed that yet. They just decided to break it into 2 segments just for ease of construction, logistics, and then ultimately for ease of chlorinating and pressure testing. Ultimately, it'll be one continuous water main, but just for explaining tonight, it was a little easier to show it that way. So moving on, they are currently installing the hydrants and connections between Green Bay and Bank Lane, so the segment 1 that I'm calling it. They'll be working on that through this week and next week. There will be some isolated closures on Forest and Oakwood for about 3-4 hours as they're making some connections. The outreach has been continuous, where we've already reached out to any businesses that would be affected by that. So that portion of the work, kind of making those lateral connections, will be going on the next week and a half, as I mentioned. And then the week of February 17th, they're going to jump back into mainline installation. So picking up just east of Bank Lane where they left off, they'll work with installing mainline to Western. Then the next week, they're looking to jump back to segment 1 and transfer the services. So they'll shut down each service individually and then transfer each service. That's expected to take probably about a half day per service, maybe a little bit less. We'll coordinate with every business and any resident prior to the shutoff. That whole process will be about a week and a half, but again, it's about half a day per shutoff. After they complete that, the week of February 24th or early March, they're going to jump back east of Bank Lane to what I'm calling segment 2, continue that for the next few weeks, which will lead them to spring break week, which is when we're going to try to do the valve installation, any connections that is within the western intersection. The reason we're doing it during spring break is that traffic will be a little bit less, so that's the goal at this point. And then after spring break, they'll continue into early April with completion that first or second week. The gas company, North Shore Gas, whenever we started the planning a year or two ago, we reached out to them and all the other private utility companies, asking them to look to see if there's any facility improvements they needed to do. North Shore Gas has decided they want to replace their gas main in between Oakwood and Western. So when we finish water main installation in early April, they'll be around that time they'll begin gas installation going into mid to late April, which kind of transitions us to the streetscape project, which is shown in green. I won't go into the streetscape in too much detail tonight. I will just say the schedule has not changed substantially. One thing of note is that last Friday, IDOT published their March 7th. They call it a letting. It's the same as a bidding. They published their March 7th bidding, and we were on that bidding, which is good. I was saying earlier of, it's kind of fingers crossed until you find out you actually have made it. So that was a great indication and a great step to continue with the streetscape project. And then going over some general updates related to the water main installation. What you see here is just some coordination items that we've had with the community. Overall, the feedback has been fairly positive. There was some constructive feedback early on, especially that first week whenever the detour went in place and the temporary signal that you can see in that right picture. We did receive a fair amount of calls and emails. We were able to implement some changes for some of them. So for instance, we added signage for 15-minute parking on Bank Lane, 2 to the south, 2 to the north. That was a change we did last week, I believe. The next picture, we were able to change the no turn on red at southbound Green Bay and Deer Path. So basically when people are waiting on that light, if there's no pedestrians present, they're able to turn right and continue on. And then there's an example of some of the business open signage that we have been working on, which we're looking to expand as the project continues. Daily communication with the businesses, with the team, with the help of the communications department. Bernard Pondexter has been out there every day. I think a lot of people have seen him and waved at him as they go by. And then ongoing coordination with North Shore Gas, which I mentioned on the last slide. We wanted to touch base on the Bank Lane project as well. Just north of Deer Path to Southgate there. So the design was approved a few weeks back. The survey has been completed. The design kickoff was held last Friday, basically with an internal team, with the consultants. They've hit it pretty hard. We're pretty happy with the way that they're approaching the project. This weekend they had crews in on Saturday, gaining some or doing some cores, drilling cores, doing borings. So they'll have that information that'll help them design the pavement section. And then they've also been out there this week doing some other tasks. So design is underway. It's going really well. This is to get them hopefully bidding in May at some point with tentative construction in July. I just exited out. And then with that, I can take any questions in general.
Alderman Notes.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the update, Byron. Question to elaborate on your comment about the service interruption. Two-part question. One, and maybe this is also a question for Kathy, are businesses able to remain open while their service is down? And then part two is if that's, or for the case of, say, any of the restaurant-related tenants where they might need water to operate, are we able to accommodate their business hours as to when we actually shut their service down?
Yeah, I should be able to answer that. That's a great question. So we basically coordinate with each business individually, and depending on what works for them, we'll actually change the hours of that. So for instance, as an example, I think it's Rob Orthodontics, if I have it correctly, they're closed on Wednesday, so we're doing that service Wednesday when they're closed. So that kind of one-on-one coordination is happening with all the businesses. I'm assuming, when we're doing the bagel shop, if they're, baking overnight, we'll probably accommodate them, maybe do it at some other time of the day. So that one-on-one coordination is occurring.
Terrific. Thank you, Byron.
Other questions, comments?
Byron, when you do the switch over on the water main, does the old service get removed?
It depends where it's located in relation to the new one. A lot of times it probably will remain, but if it ends up being in the same trench, they may remove it, but oftentimes they are abandoned in place.
Very good. Other questions, thoughts, comments? Byron, thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda is opportunity for citizens to address the council. Is there anybody present that would like to address the council? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to committee reports, of which there are none this evening. The next item is items for omnibus vote consideration. So as usual, we're going to ask the alderman if there's any item that you would like removed or taken separately. Please let me know after I've completed reading the items. There are 8 items. Just an informational point. There's an item that involves a fairly large purchase of a sanitation section truck. And I just want everybody to understand that this is an example of one of the things that we buy through government cooperatives, and therefore, even though the documents say that we didn't get a competitive bid, we actually do. It's just done by someone else. That's just sort of for clarification. All right, onward. Item 1, approval of the January 21st, 2025 City Council meeting minutes. Item 2, approval of the check register for the period of January 1st through January 17th, 2025. Item 3, consideration of a request to waive the fidelity bond requirement in connection with holding a raffle in the city of Lake Forest for Lake Forest Country Day School. Approval by motion. Item 4, approval of the purchase of replacement computers for all city departments not to exceed the amount of $66,719. Item 5, consideration of amending Chapter 73 and 78 of the City Code prohibiting parking on city streets between the hours of 3 and 5 a.m. and removing Schedule 14, first reading and, if appropriate, final approval. Item 6, approval of purchase of a replacement front-load sanitation section truck to Truck Center Companies, the chassis, in the amount of $227,961, and McQueen Group, the body, in the amount of $200,870 for a grand total cost of $428,831. Item 7, consideration of an ordinance approving a recommendation from the Historic Preservation Commission in support of granting a building scale variance for an addition at 600 North Mayflower Road, first reading and if desired by the council, final approval. Item 8, consideration of an ordinance approving a recommendation from the Zoning Board of Appeals in support of a setback variance at 600 North Mayflower Road, first reading and if desired by the City Council, final approval. Are there any items you would like removed or taken separately? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve the 8 omnibus items as presented?
So moved.
Second.
This will be a roll call vote.
Alderman Novit?
Aye.
Alderman Clement?
Aye.
Notes?
Aye.
Alderman Powers?
Aye.
Alderman Kashkarian?
Aye.
Alderman Levert?
Aye.
Alderman Weber?
Aye.
Alderman Walther?
Aye.
8 yea, 0 nay, motion carried.
Perfect. Next item is old business, of which there's none this evening, followed by new business. Item 1, consideration of an ordinance amending the Lake Forest City Code regarding corkage fees. First reading and, if appropriate, final approval. This will be presented by City Attorney Julie Tappendorf.
Good evening, everybody. So tonight, we're looking at a draft ordinance to amend the city code regarding corkage fees. State law does not currently regulate BYOB. So local governments across the state are able to establish BYOB regulations locally, so require a license for those, and impose license fees, and also set any kind of restrictions or regulation on the operation of the BYOB within a restaurant. And the city has done that. The city has had BYOB regulations in its liquor code for a while. There was some direction from the mayor, and I think there was some discussion at the last city council meeting about modifying the corkage fees. Currently, the city code provides for corkage fees. There's different language depending on the type of license. One of the provisions requires a corkage fee but limited it to $10. The other provision authorized a corkage fee and limited it to $10. The proposed changes tonight would modify the language to require imposing a corkage fee. So anyone with one of these BYOB licenses would be required to impose a corkage fee in the amount of at least $10. So no cap on that, but there is that minimum charge. And so that's what's presented tonight, is to modify those two BYOB licenses and the fees charged for the corkage fee.
Okay, we'll have some discussion about this, and I have a question. So as I read the language, it speaks to $10 per container. So typically, if somebody brings beer into a restaurant, a BYOB, they will bring a six-pack or whatever. So as I read this, that would result in a corkage fee of $6. On the other hand, I could bring a bottle of wine in, and it would only result in a corkage fee of $10 as a minimum. Am I correct?
Correct. That's how it's drafted.
Well, that seems impractical to me because, like I said, the usual, I get it, you don't want somebody bringing in a case of beer, I suppose, but, I think it's just not doable to charge people the corkage fee for one can of beer, because it's just not how it works. So that's my concern. I don't know if the aldermen have any thoughts on that. Not that it's big stuff, but.
I was really hung up on the fact we set a minimum. I would think a purveyor, if they felt so inclined and didn't feel the need to charge it, any corkage fee should have that option, unless there's a reason that you saw that a minimum should be designated. I guess my inclination.
Yeah, so this was not from the city attorney's office. This wasn't the policy of the city attorney. This was direction to us to present the ordinance. Obviously, it's going to be up to the city council how you decide to proceed, whether you charge a corkage fee at all. Some communities leave it up to the business. Some communities provide for a corkage fee, but they don't set any particular amount. So some say you could do it or not. Some say, yes, do it, but you decide the amount. And Lake Forest was one of the only communities I could find that actually had a dollar amount for its corkage fees. So however you want to change that is really a policy decision for the council. This is an ordinance for discussion, so.
Other thoughts, comments?
I would be in support of making it an optional corkage fee. I think addressing it is a good idea, but I don't think we should mandate that it necessarily be collected by every purveyor if they choose not to collect it.
Other thoughts? Alderman Weber.
So the original ordinance stated that it was to not exceed $10. So when we talk about your example, Mayor, of the can of beer, they could charge nothing or they could charge $1. Am I reading that correctly in our current ordinance?
Apparently.
So I'm not sure we need to change it at all, except that I know it was of discussion that maybe keeping people in line, since businesses are charging higher than $10 currently that we're aware of. And so by changing it, then we don't have to knock on their door.
Yes.
Well, I also, along the lines of what Nancy said and what you said, if we make it optional, then they can charge for wine and not beer. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to charge $10 per bottle of beer. You could just choose to charge $20 for a bottle of wine. I don't know. I don't know why optional might be a solution.
Are there others? Alderman Powers.
Does the ordinance read it's only for BYOB locations? Because there's two different types of, I can bring a bottle of wine into any restaurant as long as the proprietor allows.
They have the proper license, though.
Correct.
Right.
So we have two different licenses, correct? So this only applies to BYOB.
Correct. Whatever restaurant has this additional license to allow BYOB, so they first have to get the license, and then yes, you could bring in the wine or other liquor into the establishment.
And I'll just note that part of the reason this has come up for discussion is that because the corkage fee had been set at such a low dollar threshold, that we had some inquiries from restaurants in the past who decided it wasn't worth pursuing the BYOB option, given the minimal, return that they could charge for it. So I do think there's at least the possibility that if the ceiling is removed, or even if the floor is removed as well, and restaurants are free to determine at their own discretion what they want to charge for a corkage fee, we may see additional interest from restaurants in town in a BYOB license.
Well, and I think for clarification to Alderman Powers, you have to have a BYOB license in order to allow people. You can't just have a liquor license, which many places have now. Just because you're a restaurant and with a liquor license doesn't mean you can bring in. You have to have that specific add-on to it.
Got it. Okay.
So,
the other thing is, are we being overly technical with corkage fee? Is that the legal term? Because there's very few beers that actually have a cork. So are we overly technical?
So most of the communities that have this have it specific for wine, and that's it. But again,
That's the intent.
please leave it up to the restaurant to decide. And so the restaurants that in other communities that have BYOB and where the community authorizes them to charge a fee but doesn't set the dollar amount, they can choose, if it's beer, not to charge it and only charge it for wine. It's the generic term. I think it's understood in the BYOB field what it means, but I don't know that there are that many communities charging it or restaurants charging it outside of wine.
Alderman Goshgarian.
I think this is 10 minutes we'll never get back from our lives. A lot of interesting thoughts. I'm either for striking any dollar value, leaving it as it is. To the mayor's point, one container could mean a beer, or it could be a keg of beer, or a regular bottle of wine, or a magnum of wine. And sometimes we like to over-legislate, and let's stay the heck out of this. And I might suggest may charge a corkage fee, and leave it alone, folks. And don't strain your brains on this nonsense.
I support that.
So, I think consolidating what I'm hearing is, I believe there's a general consensus that we would like to rework this, removing the minimum charge, just saying corkage fee can be applied at the business discretion. It applies to beer and wine at their discretion, and move forward with that. So if you can come back with that, then we can waste another 10 minutes according to
Understood.
Alderman Goshgarian.
Not to beat a dead horse, but you did just stipulate beer and wine. I mean, is someone prevented from bringing in a handle of vodka?
Yes.
I mean, is that in the that's part of BYOB?
That is currently allowed because the language of your current code allows BYOB of alcoholic beverages.
Anything that could
And I should say it depends on the license. I-1, which is an add-on to a restaurant, just uses beverages, alcoholic beverages, so that would require or would authorize spirits. The I-2 is a BYOB without the other type of a license, and it is only beer and wine. So it depends on what type of license they've applied for, but yes, it could be spirits.
I have a question. How do we know what anybody has?
Well, that's why I think we don't,
Yeah,
the exclusion that the mayor suggested.
Biddy, do you want to provide for reference who holds the I-1 and I-2 licenses?
That's
And
what I was going to
BYOB
ask.
license?
We see a list
Yeah.
of who holds what.
Actually, I can provide the council with a list of who holds what license class, what class licenses in all of our classes.
That'd be great.
Currently, the Gallery, Lee Colonial, Sophia Steak, and the Winter Club have BYOB licenses.
Would country clubs come under this as well?
They could, because they carry D1 licenses, and that is also allowed in this, in the provision.
Just to share my thoughts, I would not want to see an exclusion of a particular, I wouldn't want to limit it to just beer and wine. I would have it encompass anything that that license allows a purveyor to serve.
I was gonna, following along that, Ted, there's the popularity of canned spirited beverages is growing. You see people with, well, High Noon, for example, Moscow Mules, whatever, martinis in a can now, that if we're gonna take the time to look at this, I think we should not exclude any type of beverage.
So now I have a follow-up question. Why would an establishment want to do this? Because wouldn't they be losing revenues? If somebody can pay $10 or $20 and bring whatever they want to drink, instead of the restaurant selling them a $50 bottle of wine or multiple cocktails, what's the logic? Why would they want this?
So, without obviously speaking directly on their behalf, I think, there's a balance in wanting to accommodate patrons and regular customers, some of whom, I would think in the case of our community, it might not be people who are looking to save a little money and bringing their own bottle. Sometimes they're bringing a bottle that's above and beyond what's included in the wine list that any restaurant might carry or a private club like the Winter Club. I think the rationale behind not setting, a maximum corkage fee is allowing the businesses to, in their discretion, determine what that right balance is of not adversely impacting the profit margins that come from alcohol sales too adversely, while also being accommodating to their customers. But ultimately, that's for the business to decide themselves.
Alderman Weber?
I believe when the gallery first opened that it was only BYOB.
Correct.
Yes.
And so that, now they have another license to support other festive cocktails, but
Right.
That was-
And historically, startup restaurants, particularly low-end restaurants who want people to come in, don't want to lay out the money for full liquor licenses. They want people to come in. This is a way to draw people in the beginning, and as their business grows, then they frequently add on to that and then want to sort of, build up their liquor services. So, I mean, it's a very, if you want to have a vibrant restaurant business, I think you have to allow this. We had this fight, just so you know, when I was on city council before. The first fight was whether or not to have BYOB at all, because we didn't have it. You couldn't do it. And there was somewhat of a fuss about us creating a BYOB, and it's interesting to me now, today, that we're completely the other way. So, yeah, let them bring in anything, So, which is fine. I mean, we can be as permissive as we want to be. But the ordinance just needs to be clear as to what you can do. And the reason we're doing this is because the previous ordinance was not very clear, and it had a limit that clearly wasn't being observed. And so if you're going to have a lot, it might be something that you want to enforce. Now, this one doesn't sound like the way we're going. It's going to require much in the way of enforcement. But you do want to have a threshold for people to do this, that they understand what the rules are and everything else. So I think is it fair, and you can make a comment to me, if we send them back and say, let's redraft this to remove the minimum and to remove the specificity as to alcohol type, allowing each and every restaurant to make a decision what they want that to mean to them. And then come back with a very soft, nebulous ordinance that will be easy to enforce because there's nothing to enforce, really. Okay? All right. Very good.
By the way, that was now 17 minutes we spent on this.
Hey,
We're going to exclude dental offices and orthodontic.
I think it's an important conversation. We had it. All right, so that's, let's see, what's next on this? What time is it? It's 7:09. Okay. All right, the next item, should I ask for public comment on this? Is there public comment on this? Come on. You don't want to comment? All right, no public comment. So we're not asking for a motion to approve anything because we're redirecting you to draft a new thing. Thank you.
Yes, yes, sir.
Can you see if you can draft it in less time than it took us to talk about it? All right. All right, so next item on the agenda is additional items for discussion or comment by council members. Era, you're a winner tonight. Okay, so at this time, we will be adjourning into executive session pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2 parentheses C and 1. City Council will be discussing personnel. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Can I have a roll call vote on this?
Aye.
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 Very good. We are adjourned into executive session. There will be no further business upon completion of the executive session. Wow, you guys are good parents. Can do anything you want. I have to say, I'm a little surprised, because like I said, when this came up the first time,
Yeah.
it was like, no, BYOB, it's gonna ruin the town, it's gonna do this, and now we're like, don't bring anything they want.